Hello.
Well, yeah, you start talking.
I will start talking. Hello, we are live. Hello, everybody. Greetings. We've taken over the pub for the evening. Arthur Motley and myself, Dave Broom, we are Liquid Antiquarians. We've been running a wee YouTube site for a couple of years now, isn't it, Arthur? Is it almost 3?
Yeah, but with 6 to 9 months breaks in between.
Yeah, because we're busy folk, and it takes a long time to do what we want to do on the site. So we're not historians, but we love history, and we love fossicking around in dusty corners of the world of spirits to try and explode a few myths and to reveal some unknown truths and have a lot of fun in the time that we do it. We're on Patreon, so if you like what we were doing tonight and you want to then go and investigate what we have done before, please do and join our merry gang of antiquarians. It's worth it, I promise.
In fact, why don't we kick off with our traditional toast to
I think we should.
Supporters? Yeah.
So
what are you going with? Tea?
I discovered a bottle of Lagavulin Jazz from 2011. That's just kind of kicking about at the back of a shelf. That's what antiquarians do. We keep dusty things around, and it's drinking particularly nicely. What have you got, Arthur?
Yeah, I've just tried for the first time Cavalan 15-year-old, slightly randomly, but a friend and colleague, Yvonne, over in Far East, Taiwan. She, you know Yvonne, she was asking me some questions about some bits and bobs and kindly sent me a bottle to say thank you. Well, I've only just got around to trying. So
is it woody?
15-year-old, tropical aged. It's getting on pretty fast, I must say. But forecast matured. But still, thank you, Yvonne. Delicious. So who are we toasting? So these are our latest Dustiers and Diggers, the Deep Diggers, the two top tiers on Patreon. The latest ones who joined since our last episode. So Ian, Lee, Graham, Mark, Jose, Vasilis, Outsider Whiskey, Nick, and Yuri. Cheers to you guys.
Yeah, Slanger. Thank you for joining up.
Yeah, and all the other people who have joined us on Patreon. There's another tier as well, but also just to let other people know, you can join up. There is a free tier, and actually we haven't put any restrictions on the extra content that we produce alongside the core live episodes, which we're kind of bracketing under the term marginalia, because whenever we do Liquid Antiquarian, people say, what about this? What about that? And actually extremely knowledgeable people, and also just interesting people from the public. So there's always kind of follow-ups that come afterwards. There's plenty of free content coming on that side as well. So do feel free to join up, because that's the best way to hear about what we're up to as well, and when the next episodes are coming in. And also raising glasses to the Barflies, the Aqvavitae community, which I've been a part of, and delighted to chip into that community financially, but also with my time. I've used Aqvavitae as a kind of decompression chamber after we've done our live broadcast. So, folk we know, the famous Jimmy Leg, Graham Fraser as well, Pete Head, people we don't know, Big Paul, maybe we do know him, Yeli Hiemstra, Black Fen, thank you, one of our community within Liquid Antiquarian, Whiskey Novice, Greg's Whiskey Guide, Multi-Mission, Menno, Alistair McPhail. There's just so many here. It's amazing. And I will say, for me, it's a real privilege to be able to present in this slot, because I have admired what Roy's done for a really long time. He has fostered an incredibly positive, fun whiskey community, which online, digitally, doesn't always happen. A big cheers, a big hello to Roy, our glorious leader, and it's very kind of him to let us take up this bit of time.
Or take over. I don't know.
So it'll be a bit different, but we're trying to make it in some ways a little bit vPubby. We've got 2 topics and 2 very special guests. I mean, really special guest. And the topics we're going to do are pubs of yore, and distillery disasters / health and safety. And our idea was we'd have a health and safety lecture, and then we'd all go to the pub and look at beautiful old pubs. But our special guest actually has to close up a pub because he's short-staffed. So we're doing it an odd way round. We're going to the pub and then we go to listen to health and safety. Should we keep the guest a secret until we run the credits?
Oh, yes.
So.
Yeah, definitely. And there should be drum rolls and trumpets and angels.
I think so.
Yeah, singing.
I think so. And of course, there'll be a quiz. And a sepia-toned quiz, I've described it as. So yeah, mostly history based, and yeah, well, we'll see about that quiz. It's going to be a quiz to end all quizzes, which could be
end our reputations.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Are we ready to run credits, do you think, Dave?
Yes, roll credits.
Let's do that. Particularly proud of these credits. Thank you, Brune.
Yeah. My goodness. Look at these special guests.
Special, inverted commas.
Yeah.
None other than Frank from the pot still. None other than Lord Alan Winchester.
Good evening.
Distiller and historian. My goodness. Welcome, guys. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, very delighted to join you all. Yeah.
So, Frank, you're doing the health and safety lecture, yeah?
No, I done that today. That's why I'm dogging it out.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So we are going to kick off, I think, with pubs. Is that right? Yeah, we're going to kick off with pubs.
Yeah.
Still feels the wrong way around. But yeah, when we look at pubs, what is in a pub, Dave? Let's start with what is in a pub.
Okay. So what isn't a pub? I suppose a wee bit of history, really. That's not a pub.
No, sit outside.
That's a tavern. People sitting outside. That's not a pub. That is a brew house, the Hofbrauhaus in Munich, which I've been to actually. I was very hungover, but I drank beer. so there you go. But that's not a pub either. It's a grand temple of beer. There you are, and there's people, disporting themselves. And they do, my goodness, they're looking very posh there, actually, to be perfectly honest, in the Hofbrauhaus there in Munich. Lots of chandeliers and everything. Maybe not what we associate with pubs. And there's an America. I reckon that's America. I can tell by the hat. That's going to be America. And I love this third rail hooch. What does it say down the bottom there? Two bits. So there you go. So there's an American, probably more of a kind of what you would consider a classic American saloon, which would be slightly different to a saloon bar that we would consider over here. But so there's lots and lots of different types of drinking establishments, but probably only one true pub. I mean, is this a pub? Would you call that a pub, Frank?
That's not. They're trying hard, bless them. That's in Jersey, famous for their onion rings, apparently.
What the whole of
Famous for its onion rings.
Yeah, that pub specifically.
Oh, right, right.
What about this? Is that a pub?
Oh, geez, and that's a migraine. That is. No, that's definitely not. That
I've got the right shirt for you in there.
Oh, Jesus, the new cocktail bar. It looks like a badly designed business class lounge. You wouldn't go in there and treat it as you would a pub. I think you would be going in there to to have a cocktail.
It looks like a dance number's about to break out in there any minute.
Oh, Jesus! It's scary. Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
That's the pub.
that's a pub.
Yeah.
That's a pub. Why would you say that is a pub, guys?
Advertises brass and bottles for starts. Well, you can't tell from the outside. I mean, like, yes, as a person. No, what would you class as a pub? I think
Dave, tell us.
That's a good one. I'm going to kind of say what a pub isn't to begin with, and just get a wee bit of kind of historical context in this, because it all kind of starts off with inns and taverns, which kind of emerge almost in the medieval times, onwards till about about 16th century. And an inn was where, you would rest, you would have some food, you would have a probably flea-ridden bed, and there would be drink, but the whole idea of the inn was somewhere that you would stay. And then a tavern was different again. The tavern was kind of middle class, and that's where wine would be sold. So you have this kind of class division of different establishments. But really, an ale house, which is probably what evolved into the pub, begins to emerge in the 16th century, and they would be owned by families, and they would brew their own beer. So they wouldn't be owned by breweries; they would brew their own beer, and that is essentially the antecedent of what the pub is. But by the 18th century, you begin to see brewers coming in with the brewing of porter. We did a whole thing about porter a while back on the Antiquarian. So you begin to see the breweries beginning to get involved in the 18th century, then into the 19th century. So what we define or what we think of as being the pub is actually relatively modern. It's kind of mid-19th century. The term pub only begins to be used as a slang term for a public house around about the middle of the 19th century. So when you think of how long it has been that people have gathered together to sit around and drink, actually this idea of what the pub is actually relatively new. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking of where a pub is. And here's the question, really, Frank, that pubs are kind of the third space. Pubs are places where they're egalitarian. Anybody can go into a pub. It's a place of conviviality. It's a place of community. It's a place where people gather, and drink is served. Would that be fair?
Yeah, people's front room, especially if you're talking about in Glasgow when pubs are at the corner of tenements and people would come down to the pub to meet all their pals rather than having their pals up to them, because there's more room in the pub and better drink as well and just a better atmosphere. Yeah. Good point. It's a place to meet. It's a place to to enjoy yourself. It's a place to relax. To go after work. Rather than, I think that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that. There was more space to socialise in a pub than there would have been, in your tenement flat or your single end or whatever. Especially depending on how many were living there.
Hi. Well, it's also a place of refuge and a place of escape. to that extent as well.
Go back to what you said about the inn, the pub as this place of rest. It's a lot of the materials. We're going to show a lot of really amazing pub interiors and a few exteriors, mostly from postcards, some from original photographs. The idea of Liquid Antiquarian is to go to original documents and photographs and materials. So that's what we've done. The postcard and photograph scene starts a lot later than the pub scene you have described, but there are a few vestiges that I found, and when you said inns, I thought this one was a good one. So I think this is in Glasgow, and this shows the kind of travelling nature of it. Firstly, it's really old. I think late 19th century, could be very early 20th, but I don't think so. The Wheatsheaf Inn, don't know where it is. I think the photograph was taken by a Glasgow photographer It's
Right.
not actually a postcard. It's actually a photograph, and it's got the name of the photographer in there. And if you look a little closer on the detail, which I've been in with a spyglass for this, but so you can see the clothing, but also good stabling. And I've zoomed in some horse poo for you.
There you go.
So that made me think of those times much further back, but that was the best I could do.
Back to the old coaching inns, which should be, effectively, motorway service stations of their day. It would be where you would stable your horses. It would be where the horses would be. You'd get a new set of horses if you're on a carriage or whatever, and you would rest your weary head. The coaching inn was important.
You expect to see a sign saying "last clean toilets for 100 miles."
But the original Sarahid in Glasgow was a very high end coaching inn, wasn't it, Frank?
It's a long time ago.
But a long time ago, yes.
And its original location as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was on the way out of town. And that's the thing. You wouldn't got inns in towns. They were always on the roads heading out, on London Road or on Edinburgh Road or on the roads heading somewhere else.
Yeah, but what about Speyside?
The Speyside. Some of the best known ones were always the station hotels. Well, the modern day Marshton at Aberlour, the station hotel in Rothes, which is quite upmarket now. You had them, and it was always the chance the last train was going up. It was catching I think the last train, or the buses were called the Boozers buses. So you had that, and then as you moved down into the countryside, you had the sort of country pubs, the Grouse Inn, the Pole Inn, Delnashach, serving that sort of travelling community. Of course, things were slower in those days, and they were just the opposite of your station pub. Even the shift work at some of the distilleries, I think some of them used to finish at 9:30 in the back shift, so they could get in with old licensing hours. But when I was working, it was pushed out another hour and another hour. So that the need for that, the shifts have all seemed to be 2,200 hours to 6 and 6 to 2, 2 to 10. But some of them had these quaint shifts so they could get a half when they finished the back shift.
I wonder, Alan, if you've ever. I was trying to see if any local to you. Have you ever drunk in the Imperial Bar of Elgin?
That's Imperial, long gone in Elgin,
yeah.
Just opposite Bournemouth.
Oh no, sorry, not that one. I beg your pardon. That was a really nice interior.
It looks very salubrious establishment.
I think this photo is a lot earlier than this photo. This will be 60s or 50s, and then that is 1910s, 1920s. A lot of what I've been doing this week is zooming on bottles to see if I could date pubs according to the bottles.
Sure.
But we'll talk more about the bottles on the bar. But anyway, there you go.
Well,
Do you recognise that?
The Imperial Bar's opposite Gordon and McPhail.
Aha.
All right.
Okay.
I was going to say you have to zoom in the bottles because you can't look at the hand pumps because the hand pumps don't have any brand names on them.
Yeah, good
That's
point.
A good point.
I didn't notice not seeing them, but having looked at 200 pubs from the last 100 years, I don't think I saw a single one.
So that's why the picture on the outside obviously dates it for later because you have the pubs.
You had younger sign, didn't
you?
Yeah.
So we're next on the history part, Dave. We've got you want a 19th century is where there's a lot of activity, and if we're talking about whiskey specifically, actually early in the 19th century, words like dram shops and shebeens come up.
Yeah, I mean the shebeen would be like an illicit drinking den, unlicensed premises. So here you read a lot of talk about shebeens in Glasgow and Edinburgh, in the 18th century, when there's a clamp down on illicit distillation and everything, there's a lot of busting of illicit drinking dens.
I've been trying to work out where Shebeen comes from. Apparently, it's an Irish word. I've been talking to Finan about it. But yeah, it appears to be an Irish term. But it's really, to be honest, it's really only used these days in somewhere you're going quite soon, Alan, which is South Africa. I had a memorable night in a Shebeen in Soweto once, sitting on plastic buckets drinking Glenlivet 15-year-old, as you do, and eating tripe, as you do. But yeah. So unlicensed premises still, certainly in those days, still flourished. So there was that, and then there was dram shops as well. Essentially just selling the one product, and really the whole idea of the pub, as we now know it, again that kind of middle of the 19th century thing happens because there was a Beer Act passed in the middle of the 19th century, which allowed home brewing and for houses to have their own licenses. And the brewing pub trade really hated this because all of a sudden they were losing their trade. And it was at that time that they then began to bring in things like we would understand as the classic Victorian pub and the chandeliers and also a greater range of drinks, of spirits and liqueurs and different beers and etc. So to tempt people away from drinking in each other's houses legally, they kind of elevated the pub into essentially what it is today. Which and I suppose that might take us into the remnants of these pubs that were essentially just people's front rooms, because you still see a couple. I think it's a classic one there was a classic one in Speyside, the Fiddick side, which was
so good.
Yeah,
the Fiddick side, yeah. But again, it was like somebody's room. Again, it. Also, I always thought the Fiddick side was an amazing place because you weren't sure if it was David Cameron's private secretary who was fishing in the Spey, and Joe was a gilly to him. So you always had to be kind of careful when you went in. But it was a great place for some of the whiskey reps to go in and maybe start pushing some of their whiskey there. But Joe used to serve the best pint in McEwen's export roundabout. It was well looked after. And regale you with stories about Dorothy would remind you that Joe should have been the managing director of Macallan, and lovely stories like that. But as I say, the fishing was an important story, and all the farmers used to pop in after the mart as well. It was that sort of place, a meeting place and exchange and event, and survived the closure of the railway as well. Yeah.
Aye. Exactly. I mean, when I said the Fiddick side, Frank, you went, "Oh, great place." Why is it such a great place? And the explaining to folk who had never had the opportunity to go there. It was as plain as it comes.
Because you walk in and it feels welcoming.
Why was it such a great pub? Yeah.
I love every place that I go to in Craigellachie. You have two of the best whiskey bars in the world across the road from each other, and they're both fantastic, and they're both welcoming, and they're both at the top of their game. And then along the road, across the bridge, you get this tiny little pub with a fire going, Joe sitting in his wee seat at the back, and just a cracking, just I'm going to say it's a good vibe. It's just there's no other way to describe it. It's just a really nice feel, and that's something that is engendered by the person running it, but is bought into by everyone who goes in there. If you're going to go in there and be a muppet, then you're not going to stay long there and not be welcome there. So you have to be on the same wavelength as the guy who runs the place.
Yeah. So the publican sets the tone.
It starts it off, yeah. I mean, like a pub can become more than the publican wants it to be, but he or she has to be the person who gets an idea of what they want to do first, and then find people who like what they're doing.
Right. Because I mean, bring that slide up again, Arthur. Because I if I walked through the door of that pub and saw those two behind the bar, I would just hightail out of there because. That's a scary Yeah, it's a scary place to drink, I think. Not in a dangerous way, but you know, they're not going to stand for any nonsense or frivolity, are they?
Looking at all the shiny horse brasses, I'm going, that looks lovely, and then realising that they're very shiny horse brasses, so they have a lot of time to shine the horse brasses.
Yeah,
So
that's also
I'm
true.
trying to, you know, why is that?
But should we talking about the personality of the publican, because that was something you and I, Dave, spoke about. Do you want to go on to the Saracen's Head of Worcester, the other
Yes.
Saracen's Head?
Yes.
So
yes. It's slightly different establishment, Frank. Yeah.
Does it also have a notice saying no photographs?
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
So this is hard to say when it's from, but Worcester 4165, that telephone number at the top there suggests 50s, I think so. They've produced this brochure themselves for no apparent reason, apart from just to put their personality onto it and their witticism. And they offer good service and civility, good company and good music with a resident pianist Friday and Saturday PM and holiday Mondays. Dave, would you like to read their wisdom?
Oh yeah, listen. I like the fact that they're civil. You know,
Just civil.
there's no degree of hospitality there. They're just going to be civil to you. You know, that's Worcester for you. Rothschild could write a few words and make it worth £1 million. That's capital. A navvy can move tons of earth per day and earn several shillings. That's labour. Some tradesmen do not study their customers. That's a mistake. A man can run a business and not advertise. That's foolishness. Solomon had 600 wives and slept with his father. That's wisdom. Yeah. What?
Yeah. And then elsewhere, our clocks tick, but we don't. In God's we trust, all other cash. The bit on the right, just some weird measurement things that says, you know. But then this is their welcoming message. We have been displeasing and pleasing the public ever since we started. We have also been cussed and discussed, robbed, lied to, held up, hung up and knocked up. The only reason we are staying in business is to find out what the hell will happen next. Life is just one damn thing after another.
Now, I want to go there.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely.
I do too. Unfortunately, it is still there, actually. I've a lot of this, I've been looking up pubs to see if they've survived or not. It is still there, but I don't think Paddy and Sheila is still around.
You want to go there to cause trouble? Yeah.
My hand's up for an antiquarian field trip.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
live.
very good.
we are on.
Yeah.
We are on, Frank. We're on.
Yeah, but it's definitely a thing that the landlord who you have to behave around is a thing for sure. That, you know, there are rules and you must not transgress. And I mean, has anyone got examples of the best awful but great landlord we can think of?
God, this is 18 plus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's mostly just getting sworn at in various colourful ways. That's all, and it's usually at me because I've fucked up as well. No, that's unfair. That wasn't his fault. It was me pranking him. One time we were doing a stock take in the pot still when I worked for Kenny, and there was an empty bottle of Ardbeg 30 on the windowsill. So me and Tony, the stock taker, thought we'll joke him because we're downstairs in the cellar, and we filled it up with Coke and water and waited for Kenny to come up the hatch and passed it to Tony and dropped it on the floor and let it start to spill out. So yes, there was definite colourful language, and yeah, his face went back down to its normal colour when I showed him the real bottle. No, that's not a good example of that's just me being a shit.
It's a good story, but we'll take it. It's still a good story.
No, it's a fine story. I was in a pub in Cork the other week called the High B, and the old landlord there was very, very strict. You were only allowed to speak at a certain volume, you know, so there was and it wasn't no shouting. It was just you couldn't even raise your voice. So there was always a kind of murmur of conversation.
Is that Sam Smith's pub?
You know, yeah, I mean that's a classic example of that. Yeah, there was no phones allowed. There still are no phones allowed. You know, it's a place where you have conversation at a certain volume. There was no music, and there was all these rules, and it was very, very clearly stated. where you went, what you could do, but more specifically, what you couldn't do. And it's a great pub. I mean, it remains, a fantastic place to go, and you always actually end up meeting incredible people because it's a tiny wee place and nobody's looking at their phone and there's no telly. So it's
I've actually got one now because nothing was said. There was just a look and a movement, and that was it. Went to the Cannyman's for the first time, and I had heard tell of it, but I wasn't really sure how much of it was, the myth, the legend. So I rocked up with Jenny one night, went into the bar, and I was wearing my working kilt. Jenny's wearing my wee hat with spikes on it, and I could see the head bartender, resplendent in his blazer, stiffen as we walked in. And so I had to rock up to the bar and just, quickly explain who I was, why I was there, like just trying to get on his good side. And I could see his shoulders just kind of settle as he deigned to serve us. And he found us a wee table in the bay window, so we're in the bar, but not actually kind of like part of the bar for the evening. So we're allowed in.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, no, I went there with my dad when I was first moved up to Edinburgh, and added this frisson of like, will we be allowed to stay? But it is a beautiful pub, and the Cannyman's will come up very briefly before we show more pictures of pubs.
It's like the Edinburgh version of the Bear game.
Right. My dad took over a pub in Cornwall, a great pub called the Tinner's Arms, been there forever, really kind of sparse on the inside. Just an amazing pub. But I was between my last job before starting to work and my next job, so I went down to help him buy this pub and take over. First pub he'd ever owned. So the worst landlord I ever met, I never actually met because we just took over from him. But he had driven all the locals away of this amazing pub, and they were really sore about it. And so my dad was a hero when he took it over. So people were charging in. I was the chef, incidentally. 3 dishes, soup, cottage pie, 4 dishes, fish pie, and bread and butter pudding. That's all I would cook.
Is bread and butter pudding not just a pie as a dessert?
Yeah.
Basically. We had these people coming in saying things like, last time I was in here, the landlord chased me out with an axe, and lots of violent threats, and people have basically been banned. And he kept cats in the kitchen, and we found a pair of pants in the kitchen as well. So it needed a good clean down. Actually, that's not the worst landlord. It's just the worst landlord.
I have questions about the pants, but I don't want to ask them because I don't want to know the answer.
We didn't know. They were just there.
But, had they been there for a while?
Yeah.
What were they? Spare pants, or were they? Had the spare pants been used and they were there for that reason?
I didn't do any archaeology on them. I put them straight in the bin.
Before your antiquarian days, Arthur.
Yeah, exactly. So, right.
My uncle and aunt had tenancies of the pub in Aqvavitae, and then the Bagley Inn, which is just beside Aberarchy Distillery. And it was an old A9, so it was like a staging post. When you went to Edinburgh, it was like a 2-day journey. But I always remember my uncle, when he came to the north, he took water from the farm because it had that brown peaty tinge, and his customers felt that the water from the burn made the whiskey taste better. But the 2 pouring whiskies that I can remember was Usher's Green Stripe and Bell's, of course, being so close to Perth. But they always claimed that the water made a difference. And we've always had these endless debates. Does the water make a difference? But his clientele used to believe in that.
That's amazing.
It depends on whether the sheep are grazed above there or not.
Well, I love the idea of the staging posts. Because it was that pub, when you were coming, either going up the left or coming down the left, about halfway. I can't remember what it's called. Over Garth, which was just a perfect wee spot just to kind of break a journey. Because we used to go in this thing called the Malt Advocates course, which was a kind of an in-house training course that Diageo ran, and it involved kind of a fair bit of driving around Scotland. And the manager who ran it initially was a guy who you'll remember, you'll all remember probably, called Mike Nicholson. A remarkable man, blues playing, chain smoking distillery manager. And because he was a chain smoker, if you were ever driving with Mike, you had to stop every so often, just so you could get out and have a gasper. And that would also happen to be, near a pub or right next to a pub. And I always remember that we stopped at one called the Seaforth Arms quite a lot, which was in Blairgowrie. It was right in the corner. And it was essentially just a hole dedicated to drink. One of these places where where the tables are screwed to the floor and the ashtrays are screwed to the tables, and it's just lino. And it was run by a former manager at Glengoyne, who I don't think left under the best circumstances. And he had a huge stash of illicitly found whiskey in the back. And we used to go in there en route to Glasgow because Mike needed a fag and a pint. And you'd be with all these kind of PRs and high-end marketing people, etc. From all around the world, and it's the first time in Scotland. And we go, we're going to a pub. This will be amazing, because they're expecting tartan and leather armchairs and amazing whiskey and stuff. We walk into the Seaforth. It's kind of, oh my God, I'm going to be killed, There's all these places where the door to the gents was right next to the dartboard,
Yes. The Delmer Shaft was that you had to watch when you went in the door because the dartboard was just beside it. Yeah.
But the idea of these kind of wee stopping points, that it just kind of triggered that memory, Alan.
My earliest memory is that it's not an unpleasant memory, but it's being about the bar in the morning. My uncle would be tidying up, and it was the smell of the cigarettes and the beer, the day after. But it was quite an attractive smell. Of course, you don't smell that now, but that
what you mean is you're inculcated to an early age.
Yeah.
When I was going through all these old pictures, one of the things I thought was the smell of pubs, actually, and to take us back to a different point. This one jumped out at me, and actually it was Linda, our friend Linda, who first pointed out. So, cool pub for starters, and you see up at the detail here. I'll just zoom in on it. You've got the gaslit pubs.
Oh yeah,
that must have been an entirely different smell. Like it's something that even could break through the smoke as well, and that just. I could imagine these old gassy pubs, and we spent ages trying to work out what that Scotch malt whiskey on the mirror was, but we couldn't. Unfortunately, photographer's flash took it out. It's the B, but we couldn't work it out, unfortunately.
It's bent. It's a local brewery anyway.
No, above.
Yeah, no, I was just saying who owned it. Bent's Brewery Company seemed to own it. So.
Yeah. Well, it's entirely possible.
The small local breweries would have their own, their own wee chain, and conceivably even their own whiskies as well. James Eady would be a good example of that.
Yeah, very much. I meant to get some pictures off Leon, but I ran out of time. But if we go back, so you spoke about coaching inns for a while there, David, shebeens and dram shops. There's this interesting period, thinking specifically about the Aqvavitae audience who have a great interest in whiskey, and Scotch as a big part of that, Scotch whiskey. There's this interesting period where the pub is the retailer, and they're not actually called a pub probably at the moment. So that felt dram shoppy. That felt like a house. I mean, it's later in Aberfeldy, but that felt like that sparse kind of feeling. But then moving on to here, the Bonder and Blender, and I do think this is in Scotland, but I couldn't say for sure. Even though Bonder is something we associate with Ireland, possibly more that word.
Yeah.
But that time where they were bringing in bulk whiskey that they would wholesale effectively and also bottle, and then also serve beer as well. The wee mirrors in there, I think they're advertising actually cider as well as a local beer. I did zoom in on it, but I haven't got the detail there. But all through a lot of these images that hopefully we'll get time to look at, you see this. It's a pub. Is it a pub? But it's also very much an off license.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, with beer up on the right there, as you can see some Johnny Walker, some Stones ginger wine is there, probably some black and white. But this combination of the two, as well as what would possibly be the pure pub. And Dave, I think it's quite important to talk about, particularly maybe for overseas viewers as well, this kind of pub with many rooms concept, and certain people go certain places. So this is a working class pub, I would say, in Gravesend, so probably working boats on the Thames, and I think there's probably a little bit of mining and gravel pits or something like that around there. But fantastic photo. And at the back of the bar there, you can see the shadow of Dewar's Perth whiskey in the window up at the top.
Yeah.
So it's fun seeing these type of things. But then you also get these pubs which are quite different, and these probably aren't too far apart each other in terms of period. But this is the saloon bar.
Yeah, I kind of feel, and again, it looks like a fairly high class joint.
Yeah.
You can sit down in it. It sounds a bit daft to say, "Oh, you can sit down in it." It's a joke, but actually, if you look back in history, look to the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. If you went into a bar, there were no such things as bars or even pubs. In fact, the bar that you leant on was started in gin shops in London. Where people would lean on the bar to drink their shot of gin. So that's where that came in. And those early gin palaces were places where there were no seats. You just walked in and you had your drink, and you weren't allowed to rest, because if you stayed too long, you would get drunk. So it was kind of in and out kind of thing. And I think when you go through a lot of these old photos, it's interesting to see, which ones do you think had seats? Which ones were there as this beginning of kind of slightly higher class and slightly more relaxed place to drink. And maybe that's where also you begin to see that division of rooms. The snugs begin to start up. The idea of the lounge bar. Frank.
Well, that was the idea. That was the idea of ladies being allowed into hostelries. That's the start and end of that. If you go into old pubs, you'll always find the ladies' bathrooms are somewhere odd, because they were scavenged out of the smallest space they could afford, and generally out of the lounge, because you wouldn't ever take space away from the main bar, the saloon bar. Yeah. One thing I was going to point out, in one of the pictures you showed earlier, there's a wee distinction. I'm not sure how definite it is, but one of them was called a free house. And there was a difference. A free house wasn't one that was owned by a brewer or someone else. There was no tie of supply, whereas a public house was usually expected to be tied to a brewery or somebody else as well. It was letting the fairer sex into pubs just done all that work, made them want to put flowers on the tables and seats and all that kind of balderdash.
And a carpet,
Carpet.
A carpet.
God, soft furnishings.
Yeah, I mean, did you? Because your family have been in pubs for, is it generations?
No, my dad was the first one. My dad, and his dad threatened to never talk to him again if he went into pubs, because it was seen by his family as being not the thing you would do. He came from his dad was cleaning out boilers on ships in the Clyde and doing stevedore stuff. So my dad was the first one to do it, and obviously he's now created a monster with me and my sisters and all that as well. But so he had no one teaching him the ropes. He learned it all himself by hook or by crook.
I know, but when would that have been then, Frank?
He had his first one when I was 6. He had Rockefellers up in Springburn. which was a cracking place. It had an upstairs function space with a dance floor, and it had an office at the back of it with a big leather chair and stuff.
Well, that's
After
called
they-
Rockefellers.
Yeah, after they sold it, it mysteriously burned down.
Ah.
So I was doing a little bit of research for this. There's a website called Old Glasgow Pubs that I really like looking at because it tells you all places that used to be. There's not one for Edinburgh, but that's because Edinburgh hasn't had as many pubs disappear as Glasgow's had. There's not been as much of Edinburgh pulled down and redeveloped. I mean, you're getting to Leith now. You're getting a little bit of that, but there's in the kind of the centre where pubs were.
Aye.
They've kind of like stayed there, whereas Glasgow obviously rip it up and start again, and if you can't rip it up, set it on fire and then start it again. So yeah, and then we had the pub in Partick, which is now the Partick Duck Club. I went in there the other day, and it's so far removed from what my dad had. So when you're talking about when my dad had the Highland, it was lino on the floors, wood effect formica on the bar top, fluorescent strip lights, the classic DJ with the two decks that you unfolded and the speakers at the front with the lights, and a Friday and Saturday night, and the pool table round the corner, which had the tiny little short queue for getting in to that one, which is also where the shoplifters went round to show off their wares. The tame ones, the ones we didn't know weren't allowed in, but the tame ones were allowed in.
I'm going to jump in there just because it would annoy me if we didn't show it. Going back to Edinburgh, you reminded me of Edinburgh and the pub that was also a wholesaler, etc. That's Kay's Bar.
Oh, amazing.
1860, Jamaica Street. Just a wonderful pub at its unexpected location.
I love Kay's.
It's part of it. You walk through the only kind of modern housing estate in the new town, and you're like, oh, what's this doing here? And then you get to the middle of that modern housing estate in the new town, and then there's this really old pub, and you're like, what's this doing here? But there we go. It's an invoice from Kay selling 5 gallons of finest Glenlivet whiskey in 1860. That's a cool
interesting,
document,
isn't it? You know?
Yeah, that's a cool document. Yeah. And then Frank, I think we mentioned the frippery or the nonsense of flowers and things like that. How do you feel about music and food in pubs?
I obviously now have somewhere that has a full kitchen, so I have to say that I love doing food in pubs because it pulls in customers. I'm going to be honest, food customers are always the most pernickety. If your pint's flat, you pour a new one, they get it, they're gone. If your food's not up to scratch, then you have to start the whole thing again.
And their night's ruined as well. Their night's ruined.
Yeah. It's not my forte. If there's a fly in your glass, then you just get a fresh one, they're done. Yeah. So food is essential because if you think about it, we're going all the way around. When you're talking about an inn, you're talking about somewhere where people could get sustenance, not just a drink, but a bite to eat as well, a bed for the night, clean toilets. So food's always been a part of it, whether it's a packet of crisps. I've never gone to a pub where you couldn't get something to eat, whether it's a roll that's been sitting on the bar wrapped up in cling film for a very long time and the lettuce is just starting to look a little bit kind of shady looking. I did that when I sent out one day to get lettuce and I came back with a cabbage. I picked up the first green thing. That's it. They're cool back.
Oh, dear.
Thankfully, it was noticed beforehand.
There's a pub with music.
Wow.
And food.
And
Oxo.
food, yes. Yeah.
And beer straight from the wood by the looks of it, underneath the gramophone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. I mean, could they be doing port or something like that down there? But it's most likely beer, isn't it?
And that intriguing contraption
on
the left-hand side.
I don't know how many days I've been looking at these old pubs, but this is one of the early ones I found. And I was like, what is that cool contraption? And wow, they serve Oxo. And fags up in the top left there, the cigarettes up in the top left. But then I found another one just yesterday, and they're Oxo illuminated at the back there. Can someone explain Oxo to people who don't know what Oxo is? I've got a feeling there's maybe some people who don't,
Watery
beef tea.
Beef tea, basically, is a tea made of beef.
Tea, yeah, that's better, right?
But that also has that same contraption, different pub, obviously,
It must just be
so I
hot
think
water, surely.
yeah, or maybe they have hot water and then one ready-made. I don't know, but it's obviously
Well-
that's for your beef tea.
We're thinking because Oxo is just cubes now, but would it have been as instant as it was back in the days? Would you had to meet it up?
Oh,
I
maybe.
don't know. We need to contact a stock cube historian.
And I want to point out the delightfully ornate till as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Alan, any clues? Would you agree that that's potentially an Oxo dispenser?
Yeah, well, it's the big brand in the Oxo there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like a tea urn, doesn't it?
It does, but I think the link between those two pubs is the only place I saw them. They both had Oxo right above the the pub.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going with. And then let's go across to the Royal Hotel in Dundee, 1911. Nice pub.
Nice
Even though it's
pub.
an hotel, that's still a pub, I would say. And above the bar there, you can see some food for offering. I'm going to zoom in for you.
Oh, yeah.
Sardines.
Sardines
and
and cake.
cake.
Yeah, it's a classic Dundonian combination. You know, Dundee cake and sardines.
See, sometimes, Dave, you talk with such authority that I'm not sure whether to take you seriously or not.
If you say things with a great deal of assurance and certainty, then people believe you. You know,
I've based my whole career on it.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that rum and milk is in the kind of food section. All across the top, we've got sardines. Yeah, sardines and cake, biscuits and cheese, rum and milk. And we're going to get onto the bottles that we found and the brands that we found as we've gone along. But there's that white label underneath sardines. That's very early Dewars. Well, not early Dewars, but it is very old Dewars. But interesting, Morton's is there. And that beautiful dispenser, that's Morton's, but selling Irish whiskey, curiously. Even though Morton's is Dundee company, I mean, they obviously would have traded it, but they were doing Irish whiskey in the Royal Hotel Dundee.
Yeah.
And those dispensers, they would have been the branded ones, but presumably the company would have provided the dispenser, and it had to be filled with their whiskey. Obviously, so good sales technique.
I'm going to guess the jug at the far end of the bar is the rum, given that the milk is right next to it.
All right, yeah, good spot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
A few cigars as well. But yeah, another lovely pub.
classic establishment.
Should we talk about a few bottles that I found, for the whiskey geeks? Because one of the things I noticed, that's a good one. Oof, Princess Leia behind the bar. And what have we found? What did we find there? So I'll zoom in on let's look at the two dispensers. Royal Huntsman. I don't recognise the brand, but I think that was it. And then MB Irish Whiskey. Mitchell's, presumably. Green Spot Company.
Maybe.
It could be M&B, though. It could
No,
be Mitchell's Butler, the English.
Mitchell Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, Mitchell Brothers. That was quite satisfying to find. Then along this one, actually one that was a bit clearer, but going into the bottles there. So working left to right, the very left, can't tell. Then black and white, Benedictine, Johnny Walker Old Highland, the white label one, which has actually got quite a tight time frame, isn't it? 1900 something to 1911, or I can't exactly remember, but fine old Jamaica rum. Couldn't work out that one, however much I zoomed in. Then Dunville's Irish whiskey again.
Yep.
A few other things, then more Johnny Walker. And that's the one thing you notice very often. Oh, there's the dispenser zoomed in. And then some wine and beer off to the right, I think. But you see the Johnny Walker just everywhere. And that's very good salesman. We commend the sales teams of the early 20th century, but also the branding. I can spot it on postcards a mile off when I'm looking at it over 100 years later. But from the bar, it's just so distinctive, isn't it?
Yeah.
But a lot of these bars, they're either not got many bottles of them, or if they've got a lot of bottles, it's 2 or 3 brands. There's not a lot of choice. It's a worlds apart from what you have, Frank. But you would come in and you would want a whiskey, and you could have this one or that one, or
You
maybe
recognise one of the square leaf bottle and the slanty label.
or maybe you didn't even have a choice. It was just, you want a whiskey? That one. That's how it was. And then moving on to this one. So you've got Buchanan's Red Seal and Walker's Kilmarnock whiskey in this one. You can quite clearly see the off-license, off-premise sales element to this. Some lovely dispensers as well and things like that. But you see these signs. I zoomed in. You had to get the spyglass out for these ones. So I will kind of, firstly, I'll read it. But like, firstly, you've got the notice that you can get money back. Sorry, the money back is on the bottles if you return them for refilling or for cleaning and refilling. But this one on the right was interesting. And trust me on this, the cheaper brandies sold at this establishment consist of foreign grape brandy mixed with something rectified spirit. Pure grape brandy is available on application or something like that. So they will sell you grape brandy, but they are acknowledging that they are selling a rectified spirit mixed with grape brandy as well. So effectively like a grain spirit, which must be that they have been told they have to put that there. But also that must engender a trust thing. Yeah, we're doing this. That's fine. That's why it's cheap.
So what kind of timeline is that? Because the logos look a bit more modern, but the clothing doesn't.
I think it's more just that you're getting the sales cards, actually. I mean, you've got Bass as well on the bar there. It's really hard. That's why I wish I was an expert in clothing styles of the late 19th and early 20th century. But I'm thinking first decade of the 20th century, maybe a little bit later.
Well, what was meaning was, would that have tied in with the what's whiskey legislation then?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Frank, that it's if you look at, I've been doing a bit working about American whiskey at the moment, and the majority of American whiskey that was sold in the 19th century was rectified. So it was rectified spirit and kind of blended in. It was kind of great hoo-ha about it because the quality wasn't as good as what we would call straight bourbon, straight rye, and by the end of the 19th century, really in America, but also in Ireland and the UK, there is this backlash against adulterated spirits and about publicans diluting their stock and also doctoring, adding potions and creeds to make it taste like Islay whiskey and blah blah blah. So yeah, I'd be with you on that, Frank. The fact that they were saying, yes, we use it, and if you want to, we use it, but we're not pulling the wool over your eyes. So yeah, it seems to, for me, it kind of chimes with that kind of move into kind of proving food standards.
We may yet get on to finally doing 1908 and the what is whiskey thing, but the one thing I'd say at this point, because I've read quite a lot. I've read the commission for starters, but that's the culmination of a very long period of time. It doesn't blow up in Islington. No. That's a new thing. It's been going on for 20, 30 years. It's not just whiskey, it's butter, it's milk. It's adulteration is a huge hot topic that finally blows up with whiskey.
The Food Safety Act in the States was exactly the same. Yeah, around about the same time. I just kind of picked up a comment there from Peter Hunt, sort of saying a Royal Huntsman, maybe James Pickup and Company from Blackburn in Lancashire. And assiduously, Peter, he's sitting there with a copy of Schweppes in front of him, leafing through it to try and find it. Thank you very much for that. We'll investigate. This is what the Antiquarian is all about. We throw out some theories and it's a dialogue that takes place. So yeah, thank you for that. Sorry,
but Frank's right about the bulk. It's interesting seeing it in the bulk, because there's that reference at W.P. Lowry towards the end of his career, because he always supplied the blended whiskey to Buchanan from a long time. And then when Buchanan opened up in Washington Street, you've got that comment from him lamenting the passing of the bulk sales. Yeah.
Aye. Frank,
And you
I'm
mentioned
aware
Peter.
that you might have to fly off in a second. I just wanted to ask you, how we hear an awful lot about pubs. A lot of pubs are closing. The trade is going through a crisis, we're told. How are things, and how have you seen pubs change, and how do you see pubs evolving as we go forward?
It's an odd thing for me to talk about because the pot still's a wee microcosm of its own. It exists on Hope Street, but it doesn't exist in the rest of the trade that Hope Street does, because anytime there's anything happening in Glasgow, we get a tickle out of it. And because it's such a small place, it doesn't really take much to make it busy. So we keep plodding on when, Sucky Hall Street's a ghost town. And I lament that because I've spent many, many fun nights in Sucky Hall Street. But a lot of them are gone, because that's indicative of the way things are changing. It's not, I'm going to generalise here, it's not us who are drinking less, it's the ones coming after us who are choosing to do other things. So, the fact the garage isn't open 7 nights anymore is a sign that, times are changing. But that's happened umpteen times. If you look at Partick and Govan, the number of pubs that aren't there anymore that used to service all the workers coming out at 5 o'clock and drinking 6 pints before they even went home, that's gone, that's changed, but the pubs have still kept going. So there will always be a place for people who want to congregate and have a chat and have a drink together. I mean, drinking in community existed before pubs, so that'll still go on. It's just how that'll turn out, and it's the guys who don't have a USP are the ones who get hit first. I mean, that's a perfect pub.
Aye.
Nothing pretentious, but everyone's got a pint, everyone's having a chat. No one's watching the telly.
Exactly. It's what I love about the pot still. I've got a problem. I've got a problem with whiskey bars. I can't relax in a whiskey bar, but I can relax in a whiskey pub. And I think there's a very clear difference between the two. And you just do it brilliantly because as I've said to you before, it's the egalitarian nature of pubs that you could be standing in the pot still, and you could be next to a high court judge, and you can be next to somebody who's just can't come off shift work or whatever, and they'd be talking to each other and chatting. There's this great leveling that happens when you go into a proper pub.
But again, that's nothing. I'm just keeping up what people have started. I mean, if you want to go back to the Wattersons who turned it into the pot still, if you want to go back to the McCalls who made it a pub in the first place, if you want to go back to my dad who taught me what was doing, it's never, no one ever does it all by themselves. They're always working on what's come before. So all I've done is kept the plate spinning. Maybe added a few more plates. Maybe made some of them more decorated.
A few
There's tassels.
Exotic pies.
You mentioned whiskey pubs or whiskey bars. I don't think you've seen this one yet, Dave. Oof.
Jeez.
Well, it's been mentioned, Volunteer Arms, Canny Mans. So, of all the looking and zooming in on bottles, I did find some malt whiskey. 2 postcards, both lovely shots with, they still had trinkets right back then. They've got even more trinkets now, but these are the zoom-ins I could get. Glen Grant. Yeah, Glen Grant. Quarter Jill. And they're even saying, and there were a few of these show cards for Glen Grant around, and they even say what's coming up. Smith Glenlivet, 80 proof. So before you scooted off, Frank, I did want you to see that because I was looking hard to see because we know that single malts were produced, but I just couldn't spot them. But that's, I guess, because there was no branding to speak of. They might have been there tucked away, and I just couldn't zoom in. And it's quite interesting early as well. So I've put circa 1950s. It was a complimentary card, and on the back it said has been in the same family for at least 80 years or upwards of 80 years. So they've obviously produced this and expecting to be handing out this postcard for a long time. And when was the postcard produced? Take 80 years after the 1950s, and you've got it. So that was. Have you got a couple more minutes, Frank?
Yeah, cool. I've got to say that display gives my OCD soft, soothing notes, but gives my clumsiness the fucking fear.
I'd like that bottle at the top there, please.
Jesus God Almighty!
I know they've done an amazing job there, haven't they? I mean, really,
There must be glue involved, surely.
Aye.
Yeah.
None of them are open. You know, I mean, it looks like it's a display. I mean, I may be wrong, but
Well, you can do that with not that many products, and then because actually, when you distill that down,
it's multiple facing.
Yeah, there's like 10 products, and you have some bottles on the bar for those, and then that's just this incredible display. So, Frank, if you spot something that interests you from a barkeep's perspective, and do let us know, because I've worked in a few pubs, but not like you. But the Lang Bar in Castle Street, Aberdeen.
It's standing ready to attention, like hand on the tiller, and that's. I haven't. In fact, we had one of them in the Clockwork the first time I worked there, and it was for opening wine bottles. So it's a big, massive corkscrew, a big kind of lever action corkscrew, like and that's it open.
Yeah, but I think so. I thought that, and this is an original postcard, but I looked it up online, and someone had actually been discussing this postcard, and they said it must have been a fancy place because they're opening a lot of wine. But I was like, well, it's got sawdust.
Doesn't look like a fancy place.
No, that is not. No, it looks like a Aberdonian hospitality, and that does.
Yeah, it's
Not a smile among them.
All expense spared.
It's got sawdust on the floor. But then the answer to me came, and also barley wine, Preston Pan's ale. You can see back there. It didn't strike
Masonic
me.
Lodge symbol there as well.
Say again.
Some a Masonic Lodge symbol there as well. But it looks it.
Well spotted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's you're highly trained for those things where you live. Then this one gave me the answer. It's for beer bottles, driven cork beer bottles.
What
Or
length of
opening
cork do you need for a beer bottle to have that?
I don't know, but it's for beer though. I'm convinced it's for beer.
Oh no, obviously it looks like it, but it's a severe tool.
Yeah, no, it is. Maybe it's just for the fanciness of it. I don't know. But a lovely challenge whiskey advertising thing on there. And you'll notice Apollinaris as well. That would be a soda that was a really big brand. I think it was made in Germany and it collapsed because of the war.
It's a mineral water from Germany. Very good for hangovers.
I'm loving the sweep of the bar as well. Just a nice big curve of it. It's a bit of a nice bar to stand at.
Yeah.
It's like Simon's new place down in Leith. Just has that nice curve to it. You just feel kind of a bit more comfortable sitting at a bar with not angles, a bar with a flair.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I the curve's interesting, Frank, because my new favourite bar, or new favourite pub, rather, is a pub called the Oval in Cork, and it is kind of oval shaped. You know, it's like a rugby ball shape when you walk in. And the bar's got this beautiful curve on it. And it's just got a host of little snugs and nooks, so there's a degree of privacy and quiet about the whole bar. But it's just that lovely, just the design of it. It's just got this beautiful flow to it that it just means you're relaxing. It's fantastic.
I mean, for putting things away underneath it, it's a pain in the bum from a barman's point of view. But for standing at it, it's gorgeous.
Aye.
The one that gives me the fear is the Crown in Belfast, which has got the snugs with the doors on them.
Aye.
And when they shut the door, you can't see inside, and I couldn't work on that.
No.
Just I zoomed in, I couldn't tell, but the guy on the right, he's either got a dog on the bar, a cat on the bar, or a hand puppet. But he doesn't seem like the puppeteering type.
No, it doesn't really.
And also the cat doesn't look too bothered about it, so it can't be where we think it is.
Yeah. And also another hot liquid dispensary off to the right there as well. Here's two contrasting ones for you.
Well, there's a ghost
I'm buying.
one. Yeah.
Well, I'm buying, guys. What are you having? A pint or a pint in a tin? and nothing else. Utterly.
Is that tankards?
Yeah, some kind of tin tankard.
That's beautiful.
It looks like a factory or something. It looks like a, you know.
I'm going
I
to one of my
thought the same
favourite
thing.
pubs.
It might be a kind of brewery tap or something, maybe.
Aye. Makes more sense. I was going to say one of my favourite pubs in the world is McSorley's Alehouse in New York.
Oh,
and
I love it.
That's the business model of that just makes my heart sing with joy. You walk in and the guy goes in the bar. It's the oldest alehouse in New York. It's weird. On the same day I went to McSorley's and I went to PDT, two vastly different experiences. But you walk in and the bar is on the right-hand side. At the corner of it kind of faces as you walk in. And even the door has a gouge out of one of the doors because something has been delivered every week for God knows how long and has just worn a groove out of one of the doors. And you get up to the bar and the barman goes, right, we get light and we get dark. Which ones you want? I said, I'll have dark, please. Can I get a pint? And you get 2 half pints, and they'll get oversized half pint glasses so they can pour it with a massive head and just go, shh, shh. There you go, 2 half pints, bugger off down at the table. There's a tray of a list of sandwiches, and that's it. It doesn't sell liquor, it doesn't sell anything else apart from the beer. There's sawdust on the floor, and it is the most beautiful space to just be in and relax and do nothing else apart from sit and talk to your pals. The beer's all right. It's well kept. It's well served. It's nothing.
The crackers are all right.
Yeah, it's just
And they're sawdust.
so good. Yes.
And for those of you interested in this, there's a guy called Joseph Mitchell, who's an amazing writer for the New Yorker. This volume of his pieces, Up in the Old Hotel, has got a piece on McSorley's in it, and it's one of the greatest pieces of journalism you will ever read. So there you go.
Never heard of it. I'd love to. So that was almost a bit of favorite pub chat there, actually.
I mean, it's the delight. It's the delight of just being what it is. There's nothing else to it. You can't choose based on a brand. You can't do anything else. If you're hungry, you can pick a sandwich, but that is it. You're there with your pals. You're having a beer, and that's your whack, and just enjoy it. Oh.
Dave, you had when you asked me to prep one. You said please show the bridge in I can't remember where it is.
It's in Topsham. Topsham in Devon. A bridge, over the River Exe. It's been the same family since the tail end of the 19th century, and it's an extraordinary place. The beer is still coming straight out of the cask, and it's just this collection of rooms, so it is still somebody's house. And this, I mean, it looks like you're behind the bar, but actually there's seats in this particular bit now, and indeed then. So there was no differentiation between behind the bar and in front of the bar. You could sit wherever you were, and you could be sitting here in the bridge, and you'd be behind the bar, and the till would be over there, and somebody would be pulling pints, but they'd be giving you. It's just extraordinary. It's an utterly extraordinary place. I love it. I love it to bits.
Wonderful.
And it's painted pink as well. So.
Painted pink.
Yeah.
I think we can nearly let you go, Frank. But the last couple of slides, maybe there might be some input you want on these. I'm not sure. Well, it was the other fourth in the development of the pub, which is perhaps unexpected, and that is the people who didn't drink and temperance and this push towards respectability, which the temperance movement and the discussion of how people drank kind of forced this through a little bit. And yeah, Frank, that's you on the left there, the long pull, pulling the pint. What an amazing piece of art that temperance card is. Wow. But a bit grim. But anyway, it is.
The Arch of Skulls, what is it, a reliquary?
Yeah, I think
together.
You as the barman is a kind of agent of death, like dragging people down, I think, and
also blindfolded to the harm I'm causing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then that, I think the one on the right is probably staged.
You think?
Staged. Really? Yeah. And you're the one on the left, and tempting. Oh no, that's just another punter, isn't it? But
albeit all three of them could be walking about the West End of Glasgow these days.
Yeah, four of them.
Oh yeah, baby as well. I forgot the China doll in the hands.
But that push, David, you wanted to mention. Well, I haven't got any pictures, but there were temperance bars as well, the Gothenburgs and that type of thing, where some beautiful pubs or place. Are they pubs if they don't serve alcohol? But the one in Preston Pans is still there, which is absolutely worth a visit. It's absolutely stunning. But then something in between as well. And you wanted to mention the Teacher's Pub.
Yeah, the famous Teacher's Pub, started by William Teacher of Teacher's Whisky, which kicked off in the 1850s in Glasgow. At its height, there were 20 of them across Glasgow. And it was almost like going back to our earlier chat about what to do and what not to do in a pub. There were very, very strict rules. There was no smoking. There were no rounds. You weren't allowed to buy rounds. There was no drunkenness. And also very, very clearly stated, there was, again, picking up on another previous point, there was no adulterated whiskey. So, in other words, you drank Teacher's whiskey, but he was a blender by that point. It's not a place. It's not a place you would go to enjoy yourself. by the looks of it.
High bar as well.
Yeah. and there's this bizarre kind of dividing screen that is separating the guy on the right from the three on the left.
What are the rules?
Degree of space between the three other guys. It's Teachers.
Was that in 2020?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it does feel a bit COVID lockdown. I was fascinated by that image. What is the guy lucky to be on the right? Unlucky to be on the right? Is it the naughty step? What is it? I really don't know, because
it's very Presbyterian, that whole kind of like absence of frippery. There's no adornments. It's nothing at all.
No, absolutely stripped down. Now, apparently, all the bartenders were on the official account burly Highlanders, a bit like yourself, Alan. Burly Highlanders who effectively acted as bouncers. If any of the rules were broken, they'd be slung out. None of the sites still exist. I did a search a few years back just to see, perhaps there'd be a pub, that had taken over. Nah, they've all gone, which is a shame. A classic bit of kind of forgotten Glasgow pub history.
And it's the first time I've seen an inside of it. And new Teachers pubs existed, but it's the first time I've seen the inside of one of them, and I don't think I'd have gone in for a drink. Gone in and had a look and got back out.
God. So I think we might have. Yeah, there was maybe a few more bits and bobs in there, but I think we might have got to the end of our pub section. Frank, are you still in time to close up the pot still?
Yes, I'm going to have to get on my magic carpet now. So thank you much for your convivial company, gents. Let's do it in person soon.
Oh, Frank, definitely.
Yes, absolutely, Frank.
Absolutely. And I've been keeping a slight eye on the comments, but there's lots of well-wishing for you, Frank. Lots of customers. And it's not easy running a pub. It's not easy. It can be great fun, but there's some awful nights. You do an amazing job, you and your sister and all your team. And
I was going to say, most of them involve working with your family, but that's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
But I love my sisters. I definitely do. From a distance.
It's greatly appreciated to steward and maintain those spaces and allow people to have fun. It's so you get to it, and I hope there's not too much vomit in the bogs.
Oh, why did you tempt fate? Jesus.
Sorry.
Go on, say it's going to be quiet as well. Just do the holy triumvirate. Why don't you?
The Loganair guys have gone.
Yeah.
Thank you much, guys. Appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. Cheers.
See you. Bye, guys.
Cheers.
So we're going to move on to our second section. I mean, the Aqvavitae lot, I'm trying to keep an eye on it, but there's so much. There's such a chatty bunch. That's what I do as well, reading the comments alongside. But it's great to see everyone having a great time. People begging
Brody.
Frank.
Hello.
Who's that?
David Brody.
Oh, David Brody.
Yeah.
Someone begging Frank to stop talking about the pants. I felt the same. But no, it's great. You keep. Oh, Jenny Carlson. I saw her
Oh, Jenny Carlson.
night before last. Olga. Thank you, Olga. She's part
Hey,
of the
Olga.
Liquid Antiquarian Patreon crew. So, yeah, I think we are ready to move on to the Distillery Disasters and health and safety section of our evening. Should we do that?
Yeah, hang on 1 second. Perfect.
Oh. Very good.
I've got my footwear on, honest. You just have to
We're
trust me.
ready.
I couldn't find my high vis, so I
You're
don't
not getting
know.
on site. I'm sorry.
Well, that means I can. By that rationale, I can leave the call and go and join the chat. I'm quite happy with that. Oh, we've got a little thing here. This is a little halftime bit. So we're at halftime. So, Alan, yeah, I was looking into this idea of well, there's just so many amazing materials of things going wrong in distilleries, and I was going through them and I was starting to ask you questions, and we had a little chat, and I just thought, well, come on, because you had so many great stories, and you've got this insight of a long career, but also generations of family that stretch back, having worked in Scotch malt whisky distilleries, going back a long way as well, full of stories. But also, you've been the person responsible for health and safety in many ways, and ultimately responsible in keeping people safe. And you'd be the best person to talk about what absolute death traps they are.
Yes. You read through the records, you can see the amount of fires. What was it? Slips, trips, and falls was one of the ones. It never changes. It gets more sophisticated, but it never changes the accidents. It's fascinating to look back. The only thing in the whisky industry is quite unique is often if a factory burns down, that's sometimes the end of the factory. It is always quite amazing how so many have survived. So the one that I know of is that when Yunnie burnt down just before the Second World War, they stripped the equipment out of Takeover Moor, I was told, put in the train and up to re-equip Yunnie, and that probably meant that Takeover Moor wasn't good to reopen as a distillery. We all know the stories about the lime and the water there, but it had been kept as a working reserve, a little bit like Parkmore, but I've never found out where Parkmore stills went to. But the instance, because my uncle, who's the farmer beside Yunnie, he always told the story of my grandfather at one of the fires, because he was a farmer, but he was called out in the sort of thing, the furrow and local. And the story goes in the Aberlour stories is the church bells were rung when Aberlour was in fire, so it took the folk out. But most of the distilleries have fires. I was just looking through that DCL distillery series. You've got Dallasdew with the fire, Yunnie, Melbourne, where they took I think it was the Cameronian Highlanders out to throw the water at it. Yunnie taking the locals out. Yunnie had a number of fires over the year, but the 1917 was quite catastrophic. But you have fires like closing Port. Was it Cambus was closed for 24 years because of the big fire there. But health and safety's moved on quite a bit since then.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a couple of the themes, I suppose, and maybe we can come to that, but the problem is not entirely fixed. I'm sure that's something that needs to be addressed, but you were someone that I came to, how did they make it better? And actually, joking aside, health and safety is important, and looking after your staff is important. And when I was digging through a lot of this old stuff, you come across some stories of staff absolutely risking their lives to try and save the distillery, and that's presumably because they wouldn't have a job next week if they didn't save the distillery, and they did go up in flames a lot. But also a bit of victim blaming as well that kind of went on, whereas now there is this there is a responsibility of companies to keep workers safe, and that is important. And okay, it might be risk and insurance, and they feel like they're liable, but that's a good thing. That is a good thing.
Absolutely, yes. You can see the impact of an accident in anybody, and also, more traffic accidents. The impact on everybody on it. And remember, in the malt distilling, it was small communities, but even the big distilleries. I was thinking about Cambus and these distilleries that, though they're big distilleries, there's still that community feel. So it would hurt folk quite a bit. Yes, Arthur, the blame culture, you can find that up until quite a few decades ago. There was always a blame culture. I hear so many companies say we don't have a blame culture, but who are we going to blame? There's always but accident investigation. I know it's some subject, but you've always to try and find out the root cause. So many things are human factors. Equipment failure, yeah, that's easy to sort, but it's training your staff, etc. It's having experienced staff, but staff that work safely. I know. I go by with grants, and the reflective jacket says, "If I'm not working safely, report me." But which is one way of doing it, but it's that culture of work and stuff. And I remember when we started in the distilleries, we'd be starting with folk that were very experienced and would say, "Watch that, that's done that." And that's where I picked up so many of the stories. "Oh, this happened here. This is why we don't do that." Or "Watch yourself with that. Never look at the fire below the still directly. Look below it, to the side of it." Now you would wear goggles to look at the fire. You would wear something if you were looking at the eclipse. So that's the sort of things. But if you look at life in general, how things get safer, when you stop and look back a few years, you see how things got safer. You look at the early pictures of the whisky going down the railway in a train in an open car, but the butts are standing in their end. There was 4 folk needed to upend that, maybe 3 really hard guys. That's a no now. You wouldn't even look at doing that now. The little casks, you use a stick to push it so you don't hurt your back, sort of things. So we looked at all of that things. I remember Seagram looking at square casks in Canada, so that but they're a problem to roll, but the idea was that forklift would take care of it. But the old cask is done in the double arch, so it's very safe. Yeah.
Well, that's a lovely introduction. Shall we sorry, I was repeating that. Sorry. Anyway, shall we look at some distilleries blowing up then? Let's start.
As a general manager of a distillery, that was the call you never wanted to hear, that was an accident or something like that.
Yeah,
but insurance goes back quite a way. You look at Barnard. I think in one of your first episodes of the Antiquarian, you reported the accident of the lady being burnt by the Aqvavitae pot. Blowing off at Dundarcus, which is near Rothes. So there you have an early industrial accident or a domestic accident. So that's the sort of things.
You've got to put it in the book.
During yeah, that's right. During the COVID, when we were all sitting home, I watched an episode of the guys working at the George Washington distillery, and here they were mixing the pot still with the head off. And I was fascinated and dropped them a note, and they said that the liquid was only sticky until it started distilling. I thought, well, that was interesting. But And at that point, it comes, the vapours are coming off, so you've got alcoholic vapours in the atmosphere. So that's when they luted the head of the still with the flour to keep it in, to stop it leaking. But there you go. But the lady, she hadn't luted her still, or the pressure was too much. The head flew off. So that's overpressure. That's one of the big things. That's why many of the distilleries are fitted with these two-way vacuum or pressure valves, because that's where that everything's going.
Were you at Glengrant when wee Geordie collapsed? Or was that?
No, I wasn't.
Before your time. Wee Geordie not being a distillery worker, but still, yeah.
Yes, Geordie was the little spirit still. Geordie probably collapsed because they used to eat his stills there before recent times when they just resorted to a double distillation, because Glengrant used to put strong fades, weak fades back into Geordie to make strong fades for the big spirit still. But that was done away in the 80s. I remember the balancing of Glengrant. But that's the sort of things they putting the hot faint in. There you go, Glenfarclas, 1980s.
You also worked there, Alan. I mean, I'm not saying.
Yeah, I missed that one as well, Dave.
That's two distilleries that you worked at.
Yes. I'm not as bad as somebody will speak about a bit later, the manager of Dillewin in north of Scotland, because the name is both Macintosh, so they both work for Dillewin Talisker, so he's quite a record. But you can see the vacuum damage there, but when it goes with the vacuum, it will go quick, and you could open the man doors there. I think once it starts, it's gone. So. If you do that at a distillery, that reputation will sit with you for a long time. And if it was your fault, you might get your jotters as well. But that's a big still. Used to have contents written out at 6,500 gallons. So that was a big still. So big damage.
So part of the reason for doing this as well was actually I spent a week working with Francis at the Half Mill last week. I say working, I was kind of following him round, and occasionally he'd ask me to open something or close something, and I'd double and triple check that I was opening or closing the right thing, because it's all just pipes and valves to me. And I was just acutely aware of how much it is about, moving around hot liquids at the right temperature and temperature, and lots of things that could go wrong. But in prep for this, you sent over this document. So it's a really great paper by this insuranceman talking to his colleagues about whiskey. And he had his large diagram, which was too large even for his book. It had to be on the inside and outside cover and fold out, and I had to split it into two. And he still left out the store and the the warehouse, as well as the malting at the beginning as fire risks. So I thought that was a useful way, Alan, just to show the danger points. I put some modern what do you call them, hazard signs, I suppose, as a kind of point of what we're talking about. And then we're going to go through a few examples of things that have gone wrong. So that's before distillation, and that's distillation and afterwards. So those are kind of, did I miss anything? That's mostly it.
No, that's it. I thought it was fascinating. But the diagram, I was tickled with the diagram. It's a great little diagram. And here's somebody writing about insurance risks. So some of our best evidence of what we were doing a few years ago come from the good maps, but especially around Leith and Campbelltown. I noticed Justine had posted some of the good maps, the insurance maps, and they tell you the construction of the buildings. It tells you with things. It's super for finding out who's the owner of the different warehouses in different places. But that's insurance taking a real hit, because when the Bon Accord distillery fire, there's 800,000 gallons of whiskey claimed to have went up in flames. That's a big insurance hit. Now, we get this snippet, there you go, Bonaccord and the Hardgate, and owned by Dillure and Talisker. The newspaper report says it's John McIntosh is the manager. This is somebody doing repair work on a cask with a naked flame. And that's,
Is that right?
That is amazing. But there was, I remember at Glenlivet when the artifacts had been collected, here was these wooden things that a candle sat on. So you went looking with a naked flame. But of course now it would be zoned. You wouldn't be allowed any naked flame in a warehouse. But look at the damage it's done there. Again, thankfully, nobody's hurt on that one.
Oh, yeah.
But really,
can I jump in on that
North.
one? Because there's an interesting bit of, it sounds all geeky even for us, but bit of postal history. So around the outside, this was a burnings the other night. So someone's written around the outside. And I haven't got the postmark or one or other of these, but this postcard, one of these postcards was in London like a week later, a week after the fire. So someone had raced down there, taken some pictures, had it produced into a postcard. Someone had bought the postcard and then written on it and posted it. And it was, I think it was a week it was down there, which said something about what postcards meant at the time. You know, they could be used as much as anything, how efficient the whole thing was. And actually, to get a high quality photograph like that, people wouldn't have owned, well, they certainly didn't have iPhones.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I also like the message on that, Arthur. And it said, you know, this was a bonny blaze the other night. You know, as a distillery explodes.
Indeed, Dave, they seem to love a blaze. When Cornwall Moor burnt down, the Dufton News writes about it, and then it started snowing in this weird scene in the area. They quite hung up in the pictures, or the types of flames, which probably, well, the blue flames get to be the ethanol, but they're fascinated by the flames. But that was a massive fire. It probably was the end of North Scotland. I think it did. They spoke about converting it to a grain distillery, but by 1917 it had passed to DCL. So that was it. But yeah, that postcards, that pictures sit about. I've seen great examples of it at the Elgin Library. But 800,000 gallons, that's a lot of whiskey sloshing about. Whether the insurance claim is inflated, because I was looking at the date, 1904, Dillure would be sitting with a lot of stock. They've closed Imperial. But then the next time Imperial will be open is following the Dillure fire in the 1917. Right. So Imperial is opened when distilling restarted in the First World War. So there you go. And also big claims. That's the swimming gala at the pool. You don't do that now. You wouldn't be allowed to do a couple of lights.
Health and safety gone mad.
The Dalmunic, yes. But they used to have the Bonaccord swimming club come out. Fascinating distillery. There's the Imperial Crown. And also big claims at the time. It was all designed for fire protection with the brickwork and the steel work. So
yeah, that's why I included that one. Great post.
That one is also fascination. You see the kilns to the left, that's a barley kiln, so they're drying barley. There's one at the other side, and then it malts into the maltings, and that's Imperial.
And they would have had those maltings as separate buildings to reduce that fire risk, presumably?
They're pretty separate, but actually the building that they kept separate at the old Imperial was the mill. And if we go back to that Yunnie's booklet, he reckons that the mill room is the most dangerous place in the distillery. And the explosions or near explosions that I've seen has been the mill room.
Yeah. And we were talking about, wasn't it something just the wood was less dangerous than metal?
Yes, because most equipment was wood, because metal, you know, an elevator going against a metal elevator can cause sparks. So that was one of the things. A good example is, well, I don't know if they've changed it at Scapa, but it was all wooden milling equipment. So is Glenallachie in that sense, is milling equipment. But he catches, which again speaks to the James Eadie book, is the changing from the 2 rollers to the 4 roller mills with explosion suppression. And that was a big step forward. But yet the Bowler mills, the early 5 roller Bowler mills, you'll see the ones at Glenfarclas had bars on it because the doors used to blow open. But there's venting all part and there's all suppression within the roll. Very simple ideas that Porteous used, and we know that Charles Doig did a lot of work in fire prevention and milling and that. But we get these marvelous pictures of Maltons going in fire. I was always told that when the wind blew from the east, the windmills had more chance of blowing up because the air is dry. So
interesting. Yeah. I mean, the maltings, it seems innocuous. What's the worst?
Yeah, well, so the malt in the floor's moist, the barley in the loft's dry, but if you're using the elevator to take it up, the molten fire, you'll find in the book blame culture. Yes, the kilnman had spent a wee bit longer in the local pub before coming back to tend the fire, so the fire was out of control or something. But then you were introducing these sparks up. The roofs would be wooden, and that was always a source of fire. But a Maltons, and you can see the Maltons had burnt in the Bonaccord distillery or North of Scotland distillery, so it was big fire.
And here's one from what I suppose the engine room, would you call it, Glenlossie?
Yeah, that's the Glenlossie distillery. It's virtually recognisable as the same building. The fire engine for it sits at Dallas Dew Distillery, ancient monuments of it, but they're looking for a home for it. But Glenlossie also sent their engine to Glengrant when they did a fire, and it's that sort of working together. But there you go, that's a bit of damage in the old nice engine there.
Yeah. And I suppose moving through to the still room before we get an old tranche of warehouses, actually jumping away from whiskey. I just found this one. I need to do a bit more research on it. So, they actually describe it as an explosion. It will be incendie, I think, or incendie if it was fire. This absinthe distillery. But yeah, people running out on fire from there. But would that have a pressure thing? I don't know. But and that was the internal. But I can't work out if it was before or after. But anyway, it's a cool drawing. I know you like seeing cool things, Alan. I thought I'd show you that.
Yes. So the early explosions sometimes was the casks exploding. The one at Aberlour there was an almighty bang, but it was the stock cask in the filling store. And again, health and safety, we've got the story, and I think it's Northern Scott carries it, the local slater and his nephew going up onto the roof because the mill room's been lost, the still house is gone, and they go up on the roof to remove the slates, we presume, and sarking, to be able to pour water onto the bits that are nearest the hot part. But you imagine somebody going into that thing, and even the newspaper says it was very dangerous but heroic. I think you would have to give them a dressing down, but they probably got a reward for a big drum or something like that.
I hope so. So yeah, warehouses on fire as well. That's a big one. So this is Dublin, the Great Fire of Dublin. An illustration of
that's a pretty legendary fire, that one.
Yeah, and
it's still
the thing here is, was anybody killed during the fire? That's a fascinating story. And there's nobody, I believe, killed by the fire, but
exactly.
The whiskey's running down the street.
The newspapers report it as such really consistently, but I don't know. I mean, they bet there's so much whiskey running in the street and free access to, getting stuff out of warehouses that casks go missing and stuff like that, and fire, lit alcohol running down the street. This guy's drinking out of a shoe, And the story is that no one died in the fire, and the response from the people, trying to help, get the fire out was exemplary. But 14 people died from alcohol intoxication. So that is the story. And I don't know why I distrust it, but I do slightly. But
I always love the photo of the casks of Glengoyne in Glasgow. Was it 60s or 70s? Fell off the back of the lorry and they're broken and they're running the street, and the Daily Record or somebody's photographed it with everybody running about. So that's a good sort of story. But do you imagine the environmental impact of that spillage? And that is something that we go to great pains to do.
But there was also the Great Adelphi flood in the Gorbals.
The Gorbals,
the tanks,
the tanks just burst. Yeah.
The tanks burst, yes, and I think somebody was there folk drowned by that.
There were folk drowned.
There was fatalities with it, and also these large distilleries in the towns making grain whiskey, big volumes, fantastic volumes.
Amazing volumes.
I love a story at when coffee started the coffee still. He flared off the high alcohols that went out the vent at the top of the coffee. So they've stopped doing that now. But when you think of it, an oil refinery still flares off from their pots, but the vapours would be condensed.
But I was going to ask you a question that Mark Watt, hello Mark, asked vaguely. Has there ever been a fire in the distillery by somebody taking a photo? A mobile phone.
Yeah, well, the amount of times you go in and as a casual visitor, we can't take photographs, it might blow the still house. Well, I don't think I should be in the still house if there's a flammable atmosphere. But no, I haven't heard evidence. There's a lot of folklore in that one. Yeah, exactly. Been fires in still houses, but it's usually overcharging a spirit still of a still distillation. What it has happened in the liquids. The one that I like from Bruce Lockett, the night of the Tay Bridge disaster. Well, that was a big disaster with the storm, but it blew the chimney down at Balmenich and it burst the stills, and it was threatening to put the still house on fire. Well, the roof would have been probably wooden, but the stillman there had the foresight to open the crans and discharge the liquids out of the still and take it out. Another one that you can, there were some incidents with distilleries in the 50s, 60s, and you will see that today with I went by Craigellachie today and looked over, and I says, oh yeah, the vents from the still are taken outside the still house to stop that, or if somebody inadvertently left the valve open. But then the companies at that time did a lot of lock and capture where you can't open the valve, it empties it, because if you don't open the air cran and you open the discharge, you get the collapse of still. And if you don't have the air cran open and you were putting cold liquid in, you weren't allowing the air into it, and you were very careful opening the stills. And that's what I was saying. The fires was usually something else went wrong with the still. Yeah. But as I was saying to Arthur earlier, we used to lift the rope round the fire and look to see if the brewer would say the week's wax not so good, have a look at the stills, and you would look round, lift the rope, and you might just see that little pinprick and a low winds and faint still coming out and the little flame. So he would say, right, stop with distillation when the still's off, and then we'll repair it. But that was the sort. There was one a few years ago. Forsyth, no, I'm not blaming Forsyth. The coppersmiths used to tap the bottom of the direct fire still and lift it in, and then this tap was put in. And one of these taps came out on one occasion, and I think it was Arbor it happened at. So after that, they welded the tops of the stills. And the drawing also shows the siphon and the low wines and faint still, where you never emptied the bottom of the still because it was so hot. And if you left that for a long time, there was a bit of heat, that you would have a drop bottom. It would, instead of being, was that could cave, it would be the other way. So again, that was an expensive stop. Forsyth would jack it up, and coppersmiths would jack it up. There is other coppersmiths would jack it up and have to hammer
We're not
it again.
BBC. It's
Other
okay.
coppersmiths are available.
You
if you suffer
mentioned-
from a drop bottom,
But the steam distillation stopped all that.
Yeah,
But
of course.
and then we preheat a lot of the liquids in now, so the chance of cold. But then when we were going to be safer and take everybody out the pot stills, we would introduce cleaning into the stills. And then we would, oh, what a great idea, we'll give it a flush with cold water. So there was one or two of those, so these sort of things. Anything that you do, if you, the unintentional consequence of any change usually happens that something will go wrong. So there you go.
In the middle of that, you mentioned Dundee. Oh, Taybridge disaster. Yeah, that made me think of that. You've probably seen this one. It's Watson's,
Yes,
isn't it? Dundee's
yes.
Great Fire. Look at all that those hoops. But I've seen that postcard a number of times. I've copied out the text on it. So yeah, remains of a fire. Boyd Wilson patent cement case pillars and 3 concrete floors, undamaged by fire and still intact, except were smashed by falling walls. With the exception of crumbling walls, this is the only part of the buildings left standing. The Portland cement used was manufactured by I.G. Johnson and Co. Limited. So,
Again, that was a massive fire. That was a massive
that
one.
killed the company, didn't it?
I know, but it's like turning a disaster into an advert for cement.
Oh yeah. The 1960s the Waterloo Street design still houses. The steel was always within a concrete cover again to stop the steel distortion.
Yeah.
We've moved away from that again. Yeah, but then all the receivers in the still house were wood at that time. So if you did have a fire, you'd another source of fuel. I hardly see wood in spirit receivers in a still house now. But right up until the 70s, it was always felt that the whisky it was made in the distillery had either touched copper or wood, and they kept intermediate spirit receivers. But then in the 60s, you see like Delmy Evans has shifted the spirit out of the still house and it goes straight into the spirit receiver warehouse vat.
Mhm.
But now you'll see the still festooned. Yeah, and this is a very tragic fire.
That was a disaster.
Yeah, it's, the site is still, it's used as a car park at times. It's still wasteland, but phenomenal loss of life here. And that really sped up the industry, moving the warehousing out of the city centres and out to dedicated farms, really, like Blackgrange, like Keith Bondwan, Mulben, Bulgray, these big bonds out in the countryside. You'll see the new Jewers one as you go down the motorway, taking them out of the towns. But
I think that fire was the biggest loss of fireman's life since the Second World War or something like that. It was a bad one. And if we're talking massive fires, we can't ignore the Heaven Hill fire. Woof.
Yeah, that one was, the videos are used in training, used to be used in the training when we're speaking about things and distilleries and what it was. That distillery, it was built with the warehouses separated, but such was the fire, the spirit ran down the road and burnt the distillery, the Heaven Hill. But I believe they're going to return there finally after 30 years. Yeah, but
And I think it's another 4 or 5 warehouses outside of shot of that top left one of the city.
Yeah, and they're constructed. The old rick warehouses are wooden with a metal frame, and then the atmospheres are quite different in that country. There's a warehouse collapse. Yeah, it's a beauty in it, but some of the racks have collapsed. But if it's a well protected, well managed warehouse. You see, the no fire, but imagine trying to take that one apart.
Poof.
Now we had the opposite, snow.
Yeah.
You're showing the Snow Phoenix 2010. I have behind me the bottle, the Snow Phoenix, beside the bottle of Chivas' Snowflake, which was 38 duty-free warehouses, all modern structure, 22,000 capacity in each of them. And the palletized warehouses, which have no racking, if the warehouse was full, the roof just dropped down onto it. It was over a few days. I remember the director saying, don't call me at night, to the warehousing manager, if there's only 5 warehouses collapsed tonight. But they just collapsed down onto each other. It was a no-no. It wasn't a freak weather event. It was the way that the snow came and then thaw during the day. So since then, they don't fit them with gutters, allow the snow off. They've also procedures, if there's so many foot of snow, they will take action by putting machines up to try and clean it. We did lots of things at that time. Funny enough, we never stopped production because the industry was really good to us at the time. Some of our competitors offered to replace stock, and it was a swap basis. The warehouses in the south picked up the work, but it was frightening at the time. It was just rifle fire as the bolts cracked and just crumpled down. Again, hardly any whisky lost. And the warehouses, it was quite a novel. The team were very novel. They just built a new warehouse over the collapsed one and then removed the things. And no hot work.
Did they?
No hot work.
Wow.
But it was a
Different
phenomenal
design?
learning.
Different angle
And
of
all
roof?
guess what? All the sprinklers collapsed with it. So if there was a fire, the sprinklers were damaged.
So with snow like that, and Heaven Hill, which they believe has started with lightning, we're kind of in, just as we conclude our Distilleries Disasters, we're into kind of act of God territory a little bit, aren't we? So this is a Chartreuse Carthusian monastery that makes a very famous and extremely popular herbal liqueur. And they had a landslide, and it was a large amount. I think it was a landslide initially, and then the actual land collapsed underneath the buildings as well somehow. And so they woke up one morning to that, which you think the silent conversations with God for the week after that must have been tricky. But then also,
you couldn't even phone up the police or the fire brigade. You know,
Yes.
like semaphore.
and it led me on to a little thought about actually that persecution from their side, if persecution is the right word. So they were basically told to disband their monastery effectively. I'm not sure if disband is the right word, but the tide had been turning, so they'd already opened the distillery in Spain, which they continued making their liqueurs for a very long time. So all health and safety comes with planning, doesn't it? Risk management, Alan. Risk management.
Yeah, risk management. Yeah. Well, risk management is the larger companies will. Well, let's take Chivas as an example I can use. There's a lot of work goes into making sure that all Glenlivet is not in the same location. The risk when Seagram took us over, there was a lot of work done in that, shifting the whisky round for the locations into different places. And when the snow incident came, that was a good example of that. So at that time, we could swap whisky of that age. I'm speaking for Royal Salute.
Oh, apologies. Sorry, I was getting ready for the quiz. I didn't realise it would do that.
Is that, yeah, I'll move on. I get a hint.
Arthur,
You weren't being hooked.
that was
You weren't being
brutal.
hooked, I promise.
Yeah, but and that lost control, and you can see that when, and you were showing the Heaven Hill, that was a massive amount of that product in one location lost. Now, for a single malt, that would be catastrophic in present days. Yeah.
Well, shall we move on to the quiz? I'm aware of the time. We're into.
That was just, yeah, that was fascinating. You know?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alan.
Fascinating and terrifying, really.
Absolutely, yeah. I spoke to Arthur earlier about that. Folk are quite complacent about fire now because folk don't really have fires in their houses and things. And you know, we always knew what fire is. As I said, the direct fire wasn't the problem. It was probably the lights would be the biggest problem. Yeah, you know,
What you need is a good distillery fire just to buck their ideas up. You heard it here first.
That was great, and it is encouraging that thankfully these problems and these kind of existential risks to a distillery's livelihood are reduced. But if not,
that's why we'll look at a picture of a still house and we can tell you the year of it or what had been done to it. You know,
right? Yeah,
just by looking at the equipment. Now they've got sensors everywhere. Yeah.
Right, so I feel like I've done something wrong in the way I've set this up. So I think you're going to disappear for a bit, and then I'm going to have to frantically try and work out how I fix it, Alan. But don't be offended. Okay, so yeah, he's gone. There we go. I fixed it immediately. Brilliant.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So I think I've come up with the questions. Mr. Broom, Alan, you're going to play along. Everyone's going to play along at home.
Yeah, I'm just adjusting the light because you can't see my card.
All right, okay, cool.
No, sorry.
So we build this as this kind of sepia-toned quiz. Is the pass mark normally 7? Have I got that right? I think in light of the recent devaluation of whiskey, I think it might be fair to bring that down to 6. But but we'll see. Hopefully our pitch is okay, and it was good fun putting together, but difficult coming up with the questions. And I will just say the amount of work that the people do for the quiz every week for Roy, I now recognise that. Roy, Menno, yeah, it's quite a lot of work putting the quiz together and getting it. But I had a lot of fun. Let's crack on.
I'm terrified for this. I'm not, Mark, you're terrified. I'm terrified as well. I also remember the last time that Mark Watt and I were actually on competing teams in a quiz, which is in this bizarre Hogwarts-esque school in the middle of Japan. Yeah, it didn't end well. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think people like Mark Watt, you guys, you do all right, but just don't shout at me too much if you think it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but anyway, let's go. So, question 1.
What was Alfred Barnard's wife called? Bessie Williamson, Fanny Ruffle, or Jane McGregor?
Okay, let's see. Oh, there you go. B. The answer is Fanny Ruffle. A delightful woman, apparently. Moving on.
People have always said nice things about Fanny. Question 2. The excise used to measure malt by volume rather than weight. Under their system, how many tennis balls am I pouring on my head?
There's a video to go with this one. A bushel.
A bushel, a quarter, couch?
I think I'm right saying by volume rather than weight. Anyway, Alan, have I got that right? But my friend Jim Brown actually had one of the original, like an actual bin that had this measurement on it that they would fill with the malt. So I took an estimation,
Okay.
and I have poured a quantity of tennis balls on my head that matches one of these things.
Yeah, I think it's
Alan, I didn't see your letter.
A.
You're doing well, boys.
56 pounds. 56 pounds for barley. 42 pounds for malt. And the Americans use a different bushel.
Of course.
It's a Winchester bushel.
That's
joking.
right, the Winchester bushel. I did know that. Yeah.
And it was an imperial bushel that the 1823 Distilling Act, but we know at Huntley Distillery used the Winchester bushel.
Yeah.
I think more than once I've asked you to convert something to something else for me, Alan, because I just cannot get my head around it.
I don't have a television in my house, as you know.
Question three.
Which eccentric distillery owner once won 1,000 guineas by walking 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours?
Alan looks confident.
A. Captain Barclay of Glenurry Royal. B. Major Grant of Glengrant. C. Captain William Fraser of Royal Brackla.
Let's see your answers, boys. 3 from 3. I haven't got my little...
That would be quite a thing to do, though, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable.
I think you should challenge Mikey Aikman to do it.
Yeah, he was a pedestrianist, which was a very, very popular sport to meet up and do these competitive walking tasks. And Ian Russell has written a brilliant article about that, which is still on scotchwhisky.com. And the biography of Captain Barclay is also brilliant, and you can pick it up in hardback for £1. And that's not even the most eccentric thing he did. He is the wildest character in history from whiskey, in my opinion.
His sister was called Rodney. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, his sister was called Rodney.
Question 4. Sorry, I've been told to speed up. Which of these materials has been distilled in the UK and recorded officially by the excise? A. Mangel B. Wattle seed. C. Madder root.
What are you going for?
I think all of them.
Oh, you don't get a bonus point, but you are right. I think Roy sometimes throws in a free point for everyone. That's a free point for everyone. Whatever you put is correct. Yeah. So that's just one of the weird things that happened in both countries as well, Scotland and England. Question 5.
When was the Scotch Whisky Association founded? 1942.
That's B. Oh, there you go.
1874. 1823. I'll do that again. A. 1874. B. 1942. And C. 1823.
And the answer is...
Sorry.
B. Half time, 5 from 5. How are people doing in the comments, Dave?
Everybody's doing extremely well.
That's good. That's
Extremely
good.
well. Somebody's just said, "Where's Roy?"
Yeah, I was WhatsApping him, or he was WhatsApping me rather, just before we started. He said he was going to try and come, but we'll see.
5 from 5, Phil. Well done.
What distillery is having its foundation stone laid here? Picture
I
round.
thought I should have read that.
That's all right. I got you. Okay.
Right, so it's IDV. Glenkeith, Deanston, or Thrusk.
The bagpiper is the guy I took over from Aqvavitae Distillery.
Is that right?
Fraser.
Great fact. And there's actually a secondary picture. That is the picture, and both pictures are from Grapevine, the IDV company newsletter. So it might look similar. That might be a clue for you. You are going for, sorry, you a C or Krusk?
I was C.
Alan's dropped out. Alan, he's gone. Oh well, we'll give him a point anyway.
Everybody else is saying C, as far as I can see.
It was a Krusk.
Was it Thrusk?
So that is correct. Question 7. I don't think that was my fault kicking out Alan. He's definitely disappeared.
He's
Oh, well.
lost. Okay, question 7. What was Ugandan dictator Idi Amin's favourite Scotch whisky? Was it Johnny Walker Blue, the King of Scots?
He's back.
Chivas Royal Salute. So Idi Amin's favourite dram, Alan. Johnny Walker Blue, King of Scots, or Chivas Royal Salute?
Dave, I didn't see yours.
So I'm going A.
It is quite a dictatorial whiskey, isn't it, Johnny Walker?
The dictators around the world love Johnny Walker, you know. It's,
The answer is King of Scots. So you got our Gruff right, did you, Alan?
yes.
Yeah, he did. So he's crept into the lead. What was the first Japanese whiskey bottled by SMWS?
Yamazaki, Miyagi-Kyo, Yoichi.
Yes, boys? Yeah, that is correct. Yoichi.
I see somebody
Eight
put
place
Ben
seven.
Nevis. That was quite funny.
Yeah, I was bottling for SMWS, and I still think that might be the only ever independent bottling of Yoichi, but I don't know. I only just thought that. Come back to that another day.
Question 9. Which distillery is shown here before its 1970s rebuild? It's by the sea. Is it Talisker? Is it Bunnahabhain? Or is it Kalila?
See your answers, boys. Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's the original shot. Nice postcard. Okay,
Nice,
so
very nice
you
postcard.
familiar with the concept of the arse hat question?
No.
A question posed by someone who's got their head up their arse, and it's ridiculously complicated. And some guesstimate is, yeah, you need some guesstimates here, I think.
Okay. How many Francis Cuthberts would need to work for how long at Daft Mill to make 1 month of Glenfiddich's maximum production capacity?
Okay. So it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of theoretical. using the same equipment. I guess there's some kind of time bending inception stuff going on here, but
So A, Francis times 1 times 15 years. B, Francis times 5 times 12 years. Francis times 200 times 1 month. You do realise I have dyscalculia. I don't understand numbers at all.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But, hey,
I'm gonna read some comments. There's some great scores here. People do it very well. Yeah. Lots of. I was aiming for hopefully people being able to get 60 to 70% and like, oh, Graham Fraser 9 from 9. Looking for the clean sweep. Fernando says a real arse hat. Is that the question or me?
Both, I think.
Guys, have you had your think there, Dave? Alan?
Yeah, I was going randomly. I was going opposite to Alan. I'm going to see.
By my math, I shouldn't get too carefully. So I think, yeah.
I demand to see your calculation. Yeah.
I thought someone might say that. There you go. Oh, can you? Don't know how to do that because it's just cutting that off. Oh well. Any questions? Good. Yeah, no. Glenfiddich annual capacity 21 million litres of alcohol, which I reckon is 150,000 casks per month versus Francis at 18 casks on his average for this year. So that's 694 Francises required to keep pace with monthly average. Therefore, 57.88 years for one Francis. B is correct, with 5 Francises required for 12 years, but I've allowed a little extra time factored in for chatting and then making great jokes to each other because, I mean, honestly, the wit in that still room could possibly set the entire distillery on fire. A is not enough time, and C is not enough Francis. Is there ever enough Francis?
There is never enough Francis.
But I must admit, I went round in circles with that some. I don't know.
Well done, Quizmaster.
And well done. I went with that. Yeah. People pretty happy with their scores, and some great scores in there as well. James Brown in the house managed to stay up till the end. I think we've kind of got to the conclusion of the evening's festivities. Oh, actually, on the outro, I do need to talk about. I'm going into my WhatsApps with Roy to talk about the other vPub pop-up vPubs. August the 7th, First Fill Whisky. August the 14th, the Whisky Novice. So another couple of fine fellows from the YouTube whisky community. 21st of August, to be arranged. August 28th, vPub returns.
There we go.
So,
and we are returning.
We are returning. Yeah, I was just going to have a little look at that. Alan, thank you very much. I keep making you disappear. Apologies about that. Alan, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You deserve
Thanks for the invite. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, no, thank you.
Great to catch up. And as ever, not just this episode, but really appreciate your support of Liquid Antiquarian. You know, your wealth of knowledge. There's a number of people that me and Dave can call upon to check where we're going, what if the tree we're barking up is the right one, and you're one of those guys. So we really, really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll wave goodbye to you, Alan, and hope to see you soon.
See you soon, Alan.
Yeah.
See you.
And as Dave says, we do have a another episode planned, which is almost to the end of the research phase, and I can start putting together slides for you.
Pretty much. Yeah. We're looking at Dunder. So we're looking at funk. So we're looking at Jamaican funk. We're looking at the hogo. There was a lot of talk about the hogo in our first and second episode, of this particular series. So I thought, let's do a deep dive into the funk, and also how important rum was in creating what we know of as American whiskey, the sour mashing. So yeah, get your highest or funky rums all ready. Get your bourbons ready. We're going to do a deep dive into that. It's going to be great. I'm really excited by it.
Yeah, as am I. Yeah, the little bits and bobs you've shown me and a few things pinging backwards and forwards are really, really exciting.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, that's it, really. Looking forward to seeing the vPub come back. And thanks again to Roy, and thanks for everyone for spending your time with us.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, it's Liquid Antiquarian this phase still feels like it's in its infancy, but it's got great support. It's spreading. There's so many topics that we want to do, and it's really heartening that people are so interested in the weird bits and bobs of history that we're able to turn up. And if you've not seen what we do before and you've enjoyed tonight, please join in. Patreon's there, as I say. The link should be somewhere, and you can join for free for now, and there's lots of good free content, or you can support us, which we're really, really grateful for. But yeah, it's people taking an interest that really fires us forward.
Cool. You said it all.
Great.
No.
Well, in that case,
remember, go safely.
Absolutely. Night, everyone.
Larger.